A little bit about me, a little bit about who we are as a company, very briefly. My name is Rob Demise. I serve as the research director at School Perceptions, and I happen to be the lead project manager for your particular survey. We at School Perceptions, actually, we just celebrated our birthday, so we're now officially in our 20th year. So we were founded in 2002, and our mission in that time has never changed. We help educational leaders such as yourselves do three things primarily: gather, organize, and use data to make strategic decisions. We've conducted more than 10,000 staff, parent, student, and community surveys, all in the name of school improvement. And those 10,000 surveys have actually spanned all 50 states now and over 800 districts. We've done these all in the name of strategic planning and referendum planning processes. So just what you are doing tonight. In terms of your specific survey, a little bit of the survey logistics here. So the survey was conducted in October and November of this year in 2021. And just as a reminder for the avenues for which people could take the survey, households were mailed a paper copy, and then they really had one of two options. So they could mark up that piece of paper as much as they wanted. And then we purposefully removed the district from that process. So in order to keep people's data confidential, that went directly back to us at School Perceptions. And same thing with the other route that people could take to take the survey. On the front of each paper survey, there was a 16-character alphanumeric code. Again, that data went straight back to us at School Perceptions. Nothing went through the district. And the benefit of that was once somebody used that code and they hit submit and finish, that code expired. That went away so that they could not continually take the survey over and over again and skew your data. For the most part, people do take the survey online, although we have heard that a lot of people like to have that tangible piece of paper in their hand when they're actually taking the survey. But nevertheless, about a quarter or so of your survey respondents decided to take it on paper and send it directly back to us for a participation rate that was just a hair under 20%. So really good news there. We feel very confident about making accurate predictions based on this participation rate. So nothing on this slide is concerning. I feel good about it. And then in terms of who took your survey. So what this slide is showing here is the percentage of each person, or the percent of each bucket that identified themselves as being part of that age group. In other words, 1% of your survey respondents identified themselves as being in the 18 to 25 age group. And then what I like to do as the research director, I wouldn't be a good researcher if I didn't go onto the Census Bureau website to compare what your survey takers look like compared to the actual proportions of your community. About 7% of your population is in the 18 to 25 age range. And by the way, that's not just Amery, that's the school district boundaries, not the municipality's boundaries. That's pretty common, actually. This number right here usually hovers about 1, 2, maybe 3% sometimes, which, actually, unfortunately, is pretty indicative of election turnout as well. The 18 to 25 age group is the least likely to vote, and they're the least likely to take a survey. So for better or worse, you're actually right on track here with about 1% of your survey takers being in that age range. 26 to 34 was pretty on track, actually. 8% of your survey takers fell into this bucket, and a little over 9% of your community is in this bucket right here. In terms of 35 to 54, you were a little overrepresented in your survey takers here. Again, that is neither surprising nor concerning to me. The 35 to 54 age group is really prime working age, and it's prime parenting age. And by definition, your staff and your parents are going to be the most connected members of your school community. And they have thoughts about the direction of the school. So it's not surprising that they both take surveys and turn out to vote. So overrepresentation there is not at all surprising. Your 55 to 64 was almost spot on. 16% of your survey respondents were here. And I want to say, what did I write down? 16.7% of your community falls in this bucket. So again, almost spot on. And then your 65 plus, again, a little overrepresented here. About 23% of your community falls here, but 30% of your survey takers were in the 65 plus category. Honestly, that's really good news. Unlike 18 to 25-year-olds, the other side of that coin are the 65 plus who don't miss elections. They are your most loyal voters. We have to know what they think. And they are the most likely to be on a fixed income. So it's really, really important to us that we hear what the 65 plus population is thinking. We do, a little bit more so than how they're represented the population. So that's a thumbs up. I really do like that from the survey respondent perspective. Do you live in the school district of Amery was the next question that we asked. 94% of people said, yep, I do. 6% of people said, no, I don't. There are really three buckets of people that fit in here because we always get the question, well, why would school perception send surveys to people that don't live here? So we did ask whether people live in the school district of Amery, so they could have property there. They could have a second home. They could have a vacation home in the Amery area, but that is not their primary residence. Or staff who don't necessarily live within the district's boundaries, but by nature of having their staff email address on file, they received a survey. And parents who open enroll into the district, again, by nature of having their email address on file, receive a copy of the survey. Now, however, this is a big however here. When we move forward with some of our analyses, we are going to strip these people out because they cannot decide an election in the school district of Amery. These people can. So in the analyses moving forward, we are going to focus only on the 94% of people who have their primary residence and vote within your school district's boundaries. In which municipality do you live? I did double check this with Sean just to see if it was kind of what he was expecting. And he said, yeah, that looks pretty much what I would expect in terms of population centers. So a little under a third of your survey takers were from Amery itself. A little under a quarter were from Lincoln. And then I'd say kind of the next tier of proportional people is in Black Rock and Alden, and then so on down the line, including a handful of people down there in Balsam Lake and Clayton. So I do see a wide range of representation, but again, sounds like the areas where you'd expect to have people take a survey, we are. And then we asked, are you an employee of the school district of Amery? I want to say two pieces of the pie here, but in terms of employees, it's not surprising that one piece of the pie greatly overshadows the other. Frankly, the majority of your community is not employed by the school district. So the fact that over 8 in 10 people said, nope, I'm not employed by the district, is pretty much spot on. But nevertheless, I did check the denominator here with Sean, and it does sound like you got pretty good staff representation as well. So that is excellent. And then we said, do you have a child or children attending a school district of Amery school? Again, I want to see some two hefty pieces of the pie here. And we do. Again, we have to know what parents are thinking because they are your most connected members of your school community. But again, most people in your community are not parents of somebody of a school-age child. So the fact that we're a little over half over here at 57%, fairly normal. Nothing stands out to me either. I want to see both groups represented. I do. Then in terms of background information, so some of the slides that you see here are going to be absolutely no different than what was on your survey. And we do that very much on purpose. We want this report to be a one-stop shop for you moving forward so that you don't have to dig a paper copy of your survey out of a desk drawer or scratch your heads a couple of weeks down the road and say, what did we say or how did we describe that or whatever the case may be. We want you to be able to look at just this report and have all that information ready to go. And we recognize that not everybody chose to take the survey, and you may have people moving in. And in the name of transparency, we want to be fully open about what was on the survey. So you could look to this when it's posted on your website and see what exactly was on the survey itself. So in the background information here, we talked a little bit about how you're doing academically and the fact that you've exceeded academic expectations according to the latest state report cards. We talked a little bit about how you were doing financially, both relative to yourself over the last couple of years and relative to other members of the Middle Border Conference. And then in your survey, we shifted a little over to the facility background. And we said really there are three major themes that came out of the facility study. One of them being the buildings and grounds and those improvements needed there. The outdated classrooms and labs, and the support areas that also need to be improved. And support areas in this case were defined as places that are, places like your cafeteria and your kitchen with our children, but they're not necessarily learning environments. And then we asked, would you support the school district of Amery pursuing a referendum to fund the issues identified above? And here we get to our first important set of data. Now, at first, it looks like there's a lot going on here, and there is, but let's take this one column at a time. So again, I'm going to purposefully sound like a broken record here. These are district residents only. So we stripped out that 6%, focusing on that 94%. And a little over 2/3 of all respondents said, yes, I support you pursuing a referendum. But the issue that over-represents a little bit staff and parents. So we wanted to segregate this a little and look at how different groups are feeling. So your staff, over 8 in 10, or 86%, said, yep, go ahead and pursue a referendum. And parents who are not staff were right around 3/4 or so. 76% said, yes, go ahead and pursue a referendum. Now, to reiterate what I'm saying, in any given community, about 1% of adults in that community are staff. About 25% are parents of a school-age children. So yes, these bars are high, but there simply aren't that many people that are included in these categories. Now, I want to take you over to the purple people. These are non-parents, non-staff. So in any given community, about 75% of people fall into this column right here. So when you do see these colors up on my screen, the first place I want your eyes to go are to the purple bar, because the majority of your community, the largest proportion, is going to be included right here. Nevertheless, over 50% support coming out of the gate. 57% of non-parents, non-staff said, yep, go ahead and support, we support you pursuing a referendum. Then moving down, the other hump that stands out to me a little bit here is 28% of non-parents, non-staff said, nope, don't pursue a referendum. To contextualize that a little bit, it's pretty close to what we normally see. It might be a hair high, but really nothing that really caught my eye. I would say that in any given community, right around a quarter of people on average say no, without seeing what the details are. Any given quarter of a community is going to be against raising the property taxes through your mill rate at the district. So the fact that this is 28%, again, not surprising to me, a hair high, but really nothing that sent off any blinking lights. And then finally, over here, 16% of non-parents, non-staff said, I'm not sure, I need more information. I'm going to come back to this in a second in terms of how these people fall. But for right now, note that coming out of the gate, a little over majority of your non-parents, non-staff are supportive of you pursuing a referendum. And then we said, well, if the community does support pursuing a referendum, the district put together the following plan, the following recommended plan. And we noted what was in it. So we talked a little bit about some of the high school projects that could go in there. Again, screenshots straight out of your survey. And then noted that the recommended plan would also include following projects at the other schools, and then made certain to call out and disclose the cost of the recommended plan at the bottom of that page for $35 million. And then we asked arguably the most important question. We said, would you support a $35 million referendum to fund the recommended plan as described on the previous page? We disclosed what the annual tax increase would be, and also wanted to disclose that these were interest rates that had the assumption of between 3.25% and 3.5%. And then noted what that would look like in terms of tax impacts relative to some of the previous years in Amery. So same breakdown here. All residents, 2/3 of residents said, yes, we support the recommended plan as it was described. Staff over 8 and 10 support the recommended plan as described. That was 83%. Parents who are not staff, about 3/4, 76% said, yep, we support the recommended plan as described. And then 55% of non-parents, non-staff, again, most of your community is contained on this slide right here, over the majority. So obviously, as you know, in any given referendum, passage is 50% plus 1. Right now, you're looking at 55% coming out of the gate of non-parents, non-staff that are leaning towards yes for a recommended plan. But let me revisit what I said before down here in terms of the undecided folks. So I was telling some of the Amery team earlier this week that for better or worse, people in the Midwest are too nice, which is great because they're nice and sometimes not always that handy for survey results. People know that when push comes to shove and rubber meets the road, when they enter that ballot box, they know they're going to tell you no. But telling you no feels mean, it feels rude, it feels like they shouldn't tell you that right now, even though they fully know that's how it's going to go later on. So they check undecided. But in our 20 years of experience, what we've learned is that about 2/3 of this undecided count right here, these gray people, are going to fall toward the bottom in red, and about 1/3 are going to move up to the top towards your green. So even if I lowball that and say that that's 4%, right now then you're pushing upwards of 60% support for your recommended plan, which relatively speaking is quite high. 60% support for any given referendum. It's not surprising to see a great deal of referendum results lying between 45 and 55%. So the fact that you're pushing 60% does show me that there is pretty substantial support for voters for the recommended plan. But it's not the only thing we tested in your survey. There were 2 other projects that could be included in a facilities referendum. So as we turn the page then for survey takers, the Early Childhood Center was next. And we talked about what that would do and what the estimated cost would be. And then we said, would you support expanding a referendum to build an Early Childhood Center? And again, disclose what it would cost. And every month, what the cost would be every month for every $100,000 worth of property value. Same breakdown here in the same order. So in terms of all residents, 54% said, yes, we support expanding the referendum for that Early Childhood Center. Splitting that apart, your staff residents were at approximately 77%. Your parents non-staff were at about 60%. And then we saw a decline here. So non-parents, non-staff in terms of the Early Childhood Center, that was at 42%. So that is now below your 50% threshold. And if I carry over my undecided, again, let's just say that's ballpark about 5% or a little under 5%. Even at my tip top for the moment, then I'm looking at about 47% support for the Early Childhood Center. So relative to the recommended plan, it is lower. And unlike the recommended plan, now you're on the other side of 50%. Now you're looking at your non-parents, non-staff who do not break the 50% threshold for support for the Early Childhood Center. And then finally, there was the swimming pool. And this particular question said, would you support the district exploring partnerships over the next year to build a swimming pool? And this turned up some interesting data here. Again, district residents only. There are two humps that stand out. In terms of parents who are not staff members, about 2/3 did say, yes, we would support you exploring partnerships. But that was the highest group in terms of parents. And recall that they're about 25% of any given community. Otherwise, the other bar here that catches my eye is this 50% of non-parents, non-staff. Why does that catch my eye? Well, not only is it at 50% already, but I want to draw your eyes back to what the question actually said. So right now, this wasn't necessarily for a tax increase. This was me as a survey taker offering you permission as a board to explore partnerships. I can tell you explore till the cows come home, and that doesn't affect my wallet. So the fact that we're already at about 50% here in terms of exploring partnerships, I would say that's kind of high coming out of the gate. And again, undecided, if you add about 2/3 of people here that are undecided, say that's about 9%, that'll switch over here to no. Now you're looking at almost the flip side of your recommended plan. Now you're looking at over majority that are saying no, non-parents, non-staff, from them don't even explore the partnerships. So let me go through some of the other metrics of your survey and then circle back to some of these data surrounding your projects, and I'll review them a little bit and certainly take questions from you as well. But I do want to finish off the other elements of your survey. In terms of your communication, the best way to read this is close one eye and turn your head to the right. We asked, how do you like to receive school and district information? And this is ordered in descending order by non-parents, non-staff. So kudos to the Amery Free Press. It's nice to see that a local paper is still around in your area. Over 70% of non-parents, non-staff said, yes, we like to receive information from this local paper. And a little less than that, but still pushing around 70% of your non-parents, non-staff said, I like to receive my information from district newsletters. And then you see a little bit of a drop off here. So that in terms of non-parents, non-staff, to some extent, they're looking at your website and social media. But that's really not surprising. In terms of non-parents, non-staff, it's kind of a push-pull here. Non-parents, non-staff would rather have information pushed to them because they don't currently have kids in school, whereas your parents are a little bit more willing to do some pulling here and seek out the information. So parents, on the other hand, like to see some information on your website, social media, and then again, I would say tier 2 for parents are district newsletters and the Amery Free Press. Now, chances are a lot of communication that you do anyhow is probably through most of these channels regardless. But I like to see this because it does kind of give you an idea for the bang for your buck here. And then we did ask a communication section for parents only. So now these are just my blue people. How do you like to receive school and district information? So in these school-specific channels, nearly 9 in 10 said emails. About 2/3 said text messages, and half said I like the teacher and classroom newsletters. And then I would say there's kind of a second tier of go-to sources of information for your parents. Things like conferences, family folders, Power Schools, Seesaw, and phone notifications. Not a lot of draw, however, for parents in terms of Google Classroom. And now, this is actually the part where it's fun to be a messenger, your overall satisfaction. So if you do have a board packet in front of you, this is actually about, I don't know, a couple of hours out of date. But we had a couple of surveys closed today. And when I happened to look at your results earlier on, you actually went up. And that's pretty darn impressive considering there wasn't even a whole lot of room to go up here. So I only have two thumbs, but they're both up for right now because this is the best part of my job is presenting data like this to you because these are so high. These four metrics, which are standard on all of our surveys now, said how well are we doing in each of the following areas. Lowest I can be is 1 at 4. Highest I can be is great at 4. So my range has to be in there. But I want to draw your attention over here to the far right-hand side. So in terms of a percentile is, it tells you how many districts are below you and above you. So if I'm at the 50th percentile, I'm at the median, meaning half the districts are doing worse than me and half of districts are doing better than me. When you're at the 99th percentile here, you don't really get any higher than that. 99% of districts, according to survey respondents, are doing worse than you in terms of how they perceive their district to be delivering a high quality education. That leaves us pretty darn small pool of people that are above you. Same thing as we go down the line. You're at the 81st percentile for building pride in the community, 83rd percentile for keeping the public informed, and 70th percentile for managing your funds appropriately. I got out of a meeting earlier this week when all of these were barely pushing above the 25th percentile. That data is a whole heck of a lot less fun to present. Here, I mean, I don't even, this is flabbergasting to me. I mean, I recognize that somebody has to be at the 99th percentile, but it's fun to let you know that you are. So I won't dwell, but really, this is some really awesome numbers here. And then this is kind of some of the corroborating information on a scale of 0 to 10. How likely would you be to recommend the district to a friend or family member? The way I visualize this is if I could pull this chart out of my computer and set it up and make it into a little 3D stand, I want it to be top heavy. I want it to fall over, and it would. So you have a lot more green, a lot more yellow, and a lot more orange than you do down here at the bottom in terms of red and maroon. In fact, I'm passed along to Sean that I'm not sure I've seen this bar any longer in any survey that I've seen since we instituted this question in spring. The fact that almost exactly a third of people are giving you the highest score that they can on this, it's good news. Your average is 7.71, and I think it speaks to how you get to these percentiles here as well. So overall, lots of satisfaction. So let's bring it back together then. In review, would the recommended plan be supported? I want to dig into this one more time and show you a little bit on paper, so to speak, about what my calculations are here. So resident population assumptions, you heard me say this a few minutes ago, but non-parents, non-staff are about 75% of the community. Parents are about 25%, staff are about 1%. So when I go back and I weight these people proportionally according to their level of support, this is what I'm seeing. Of those responding definitely yes or probably yes, you're at about 60.3% according to the proper weight. When I include 1/3 of my undecided respondents, then I'm seeing about 64% support from your community in terms of the recommended plan. So again, quite high here in terms of potential support for the recommended plan. What did we learn? A majority of all key subgroups support pursuing a referendum to update the schools. That's what I refer to as the permission slip question. This comes after, okay, I understand the needs. Do I support you pursuing something? A majority of all subgroups said yes. Similarly, a majority of all key subgroups would likely support a referendum to fund the recommended plan. What else did we learn? I would say that there's support in concept for the Early Childhood Learning Center, but it may be wise to explore the project in a future phase and focus right now on the recommended plan. And then finally, while parents would like the district to explore partnerships to build a pool, your broader community does not share this support for those pool partnerships. And then finally, the fun bit, the district scores above average in terms of the 4 main satisfaction indicators as compared to similar school districts. For teacher myself, I'm going to go down to this slide and leave it here because this is the happy one.
Yeah.
There you go.
But they're all happy. But.
Thank you, Rob.
Yes.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a good night.
You too.